And at that point, everything got moved so that I believe currently my next court appearance in county court is on May 5th. So that causes some congestion, once we do get back into court. And they're already saying that there's a good possibility that they're going to go through that all over again, taking dozens of cases and moving them out once again. So, and it obviously it affects everything. And is when we get through all this, we're going to have quite a bit to deal with. So the only appearances that are being conducted now are essential things, arraignments and bail applications, basically. And the way it's working right now is that if it happens during the court day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., everything in the county is being handled in the city courtroom here in the county courts facility by Judge Zambito, acting as a local criminal court judge. And if it's outside of that 9 to 5 time, then it would be handled by the individual local courts. As you know, the court system is using Skype for Business for appearances now, which is something that's never happened before. And when it's working properly, you would have the defendant, for example, at the jail, I should say, the judge in wherever he is, the prosecutor wherever he or she is, and same with the defense attorney. And so, we're each in our remote locations, and of course, handling those appearances that way for those who have the technology to do it.
So, and that's strictly for like bail applications and arraignments. You're not doing other proceedings at all, or?
That is correct. Obviously, there are no trials being conducted now, no hearings, no grand jury, no pleas being entered, no sentencings, no motions. Everything is just at a standstill as far as those things go. And of course, as far as arraignments and bail applications, the landscape of that totally changed on January 1st anyway. So that I guess you could say that could be a good thing now that there isn't as much of a need necessarily for arraignments and bail applications as there would have been last year.
Do you foresee that changing? Is there talk of changing? Because, we might be in this situation for several more weeks of trying to maintain social distancing. And we'll probably talk about some of the implications of that. But do you think that there might be hearings and motions going forward? You may not be able to do jury trials, but...
It's hard. It's kind of hard to imagine that right now because, of course, we're moving in the other direction. Where now we're being told even social distancing is not enough and that everybody should be wearing masks. And, so it doesn't seem like we're heading that way in the near future. All we can hope is this peaks before too long so that we can get back to so-called normal in the foreseeable future.
Throughout this, all the things I've wondered about is the speedy trial issues.
Right. Yes. And basically, we have been relieved of all of our time requirements, so to speak. In other words, we don't have to do preliminary hearings within 144 hours of someone being arrested on a felony. We don't have to present cases to the grand jury within, the timelines that are specified in the criminal procedure law. Discovery, same thing. We're not bound by the time limits on the new discovery rules. And as you just mentioned, ready for trial. So basically, all those things are all on hold. They have to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to avoid doing preliminary hearings, grand jury trials, and so on.
Would you anticipate issues down the road? I mean, I hate to speculate too much, but I mean, we know how defense attorneys work. We know how defendants work. That there could be motions, addressing those issues and claiming that rights were violated.
Well,
Is that
sure,
going to make things more complicated?
That's the kind of thing that we won't really know unless and until it happens. I mean, sure, issues can always be raised, but I think under these highly unusual circumstances and there really being no good options, that's not really something I'm concerned about.
How is what are you doing in your office? I see you're in your office today. Are you working on a skeletal crew, people working from home mostly? And how's that affecting your functions?
Well, a few things. First of all, yeah, we're working with sort of I guess you could call it a core team or such. And this started again a couple weeks ago when the county government followed the recommendation of the governor to reduce on-site staffing by 50%. And we had a county management meeting, a virtual meeting, I guess I should say, where each department had talked about what they would be doing in that regard. And then we were all required to submit a written plan as to what we were going to do. And that was basically a goal for the county, because obviously there are some departments like the sheriff's office that aren't, going to cut their workforce. And then there are other county departments that totally close down. So we're in the middle because we really can't shut down. We have to be available for the courts, to be available to work with our law enforcement partners. And so we, tried for the 50%, and that's basically what we have been doing as far as people in the office. The attorneys do have the ability to work remotely from their homes and have been doing that. The assistant DAs who are not working in the office regularly are stopping in occasionally to pick things up, drop things off, that sort of thing. And our support staff is working on a rotational basis, basically at 50%. And fortunately, our office, I think, is set up well that at least under, the social distancing ideas that we were operating under until now, staying 6 feet apart and so on, no two people work. I should say no one has a workplace within 6 feet of another employee. So that's a good thing. And we are careful as we're circulating through the office. And when we do have conversations, we stand, distance apart. Obviously we are keeping our fingers crossed that nobody gets sick. But that, of course, is a good thing about having the rotational system, that we do have backup people if something happens.
Has the workload changed at all?
Well, yes, of course. Because of the fact that there's little going on in the courts, that allows us. I mean, if that didn't change, we wouldn't be able to do this as far as our staff. And it's to look on, as hard as it is to find any bright side to this. It is giving us an opportunity in the office, both the attorneys and the support staff, to get to all the work, all the projects that, we have sitting on the edge of our desk waiting for a day when we're going to have time. And so I know I've been taking advantage of this opportunity to get to things, not necessarily working on cases per se, but to get to other projects that I haven't found time otherwise. And the same thing with the support staff, it gives them an opportunity to close out files, the things that were lower priorities before. So we are taking advantage of that.
One thing I want to raise, this is, more, the journalist side of me. And as you know, I'm a big advocate for, the the press transparency and the press being present and having access to information and proceedings. And of course, throughout this, we haven't been getting any notification of anything going on in court, any cases in particular, any arraignments, anything like that. The H Judiciary sent out a press release this morning about how proceedings are being conducted on Skype. And
Right.
I asked, well, so I don't have to go into court. Can I get access to Skype or other reporters? And was shut down. That's a definite. That was a hard stop. No, I'm personally concerned about that. I don't particularly, even with social distancing, would be better that I not go into court. I think that'd be true for any reporter.
Yeah.
So I just want to address that issue. What can we do to ensure kind of like the public transparency that comes with the media monitoring court proceedings?
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, I read the memo from the 8th District that you're referring to. And as you said, it indicates you do have access. Of course, I guess what that would mean is if you were talking about an appearance in this building, between 9 and 5, you could go into a courtroom and if things are working the way they're supposed to, the only other person that would be in there would be the court clerk. And I guess you could watch, maintaining an appropriate distance, you could watch the video of what was going on. I, of course, don't have any control over, your access to those Skype for business court appearances. Those are generated by the court, and the court controls who is, quote unquote, going in. These are obviously different times. I understand. And when you talk about not having notice, it's that's true. We don't have daily county court calendars like we normally do that you have access to and know in advance. The appearances that we're doing now are generally coming up on short notice, and they are either just for an arraignment or a bail application. So I'm not sure what else to say about that. I see they were careful to make sure that they were they were maintaining public courtrooms and maintaining access by the media. Of course, it indicates in there too that there will be security on hand to make sure that social distancing is followed. Like I say, I'm not sure what else can be done for you.
Yeah. Well, I understand the concern. They say the response I got back is they can't control who records them. I think there are possibly ways around that, but it'll be interesting to see how things proceed. And probably at the arraignment, arraignments are sometimes interesting. Bail reviews are sometimes interesting, but they're not the meat and potatoes of court reporting.
Right.
I just think that maintaining public transparency is always important. So, Larry, is there anything else about what's going on that you wanted to share?
Let me think for a minute. Well, I guess the other thing is, I as I said, and we're no different than anyone else on this. I know. I mean, we like to believe we are being very careful here at the office, maintaining our distance, not having people who are symptomatic here. The county, as always, is doing a great job of, keeping our offices clean. And, we're all walking around, being careful what we touch and wiping things off. But, there certainly, the one concern is if, someone here gets sick, and also the latest thing, the idea that even what we have been doing may not be enough, because you can have people who could spread the virus and they don't even realize it themselves, and so that's certainly a major concern. And like everyone else, we're just keeping our fingers crossed and hoping we make it through here without any bigger problems. And then I'm sorry, the other thing I referred to before is that, the longer this goes on with everything being pushed off, It's kind of overwhelming to think about what this is all going to look like when we finally return to so-called normal. The backlog we're going to have, and how we're going to be able to handle that, which is another reason we are trying to do everything we can to stay on top of things, to get to all these things that we haven't had time to. And even though we're not required to provide discovery now, we're doing it because, number one, because we can. So there's no reason to hold off. And number two, because we're afraid of what's going to happen if we didn't do it. But the problem is, in order to turn over discovery, you have to have an arraignment completed and have the counsel issue resolved so that we know who to turn it over to, basically. So there are issues with that, but I guess that's it.
It's one thing I've thought about is, thank God so far we haven't had any kind of major cases, at least that I'm aware of, that are new. But at the time the shutdown came, you had, 2, 3, 4, 5 fairly complicated cases, and now those are all kind of bottlenecked, and if anything gets added on top of that.
Oh, yeah. Right. And, so we went, mid-March to May before anything's going on in court. And I think it's going to be, regardless of what happens, it'll be a while after that before we start seeing trials again. And you're right. We were already in a situation where, based on the court's calendar, felony jury trials were being scheduled like 4 months out before. So if you think about that, what is that going to mean when we're finally able to start doing trials again? It's gonna take a long time to get caught up, and resources. So,
well, I'm glad we had that conversation. I think it's one thing people don't think about all the levels of complication that this kind of society-wide shutdown is creating. I mean, it's every aspect of society is going to struggle through this and after this. So, appreciate your time, Larry. Anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's it, Howard. Thank you.
Good. I appreciate your time, and I know you're still busy, so I really appreciate it. And good luck with everything.
Okay. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Bye.
So this is Howard Owens with the Batavian, another live stream interview, trying to get a couple more going today. And, of course, we'll be on top of whatever new news comes out in our community related to coronavirus. So you all take care, and be sure and tune into some of our poetry we've got going. So take care.